Clemson LSU. What do we got there? Some highlights for that Clemson LSU. LSU snapped a 5-game losing streak in season openers. That was the tied for the longest streak in school history. Nussmeier went 230 passing yards, 1 passing TD. It's funny, man. Stats lie. Stats lie, because Klubnik also had 230 passing yards. Yet you watch one quarterback, one dude looks like he might get drafted in the NFL tomorrow. The other dude looks like him and his offense have a long way of going to get to the point where they're playing at an elite level. Those of you guys that have followed my content, I've been a Nussmeier guy. Nussmeier, to me, if the NFL draft was tomorrow, Nussmeier would be the top quarterback taken. Klubnik has a tendency of some of these games coming up, or like when he plays these elite teams where it feels like every completion is hard. I'm calling the Clemson game next week. It's Clemson. I'm actually blanking on who they're playing. I'm going to check that out. But I'll be on the call for the Clemson game. So I'll be talking with Dabo on Friday, and I'll ask him about, what happened there. There was a couple plays where I think they missed some shots that could have changed the complexion of the game. But right now, Gus Nussmeier to me is the number one pro-style quarterback or the pro prospect quarterback, because he's just in full command. Full command. There's literally, you watch that game. I watched the All-22. Watching it right now, actually. There's not a single rep in that game. Like, I think he might grade out, like, almost perfectly. Like, obviously, you have incompletions, but, like, literally grading out, the ball went where it needed to go, like, every time. Brian Kelly improved to 2-10 in his career versus AP top 5 opponents. Funny enough, his last win came against Clemson in 2020. That's his only other top 5 AP win. Cade Klubnik, his 3rd game without a pass TD since the start of last season. If you're an NFL prospect quarterback, that is not a good thing. Clemson drops to 0-4 versus the SEC since the start of last season. I know people love the conference debate these days. You know why I hate the conference debate? Because I spent 5 years battling that the Pac-12 was better than the Big 12, and I still think that to this day. For those years, the Pac-12 just didn't have the top tier program to carry the torch like the Big 12 did have with Oklahoma and like the ACC had with Clemson. But top to bottom, you say what conference is better? If you're saying conference, you have to include every team in that conference when you're making that argument. I made that argument with the Pac-12 for 5 years. Pac-12 folded, so I think I'm just like worn out of conference debate arguments because it's going to change every single year. I hope we do not have automatic qualifiers for a CFP. I think that would be terrible, because there's going to be a world, and it might be this year, where the ACC deserves and earns 3 teams getting into the playoff. There's a realistic world where that happens. And there's a world where that 3rd team, that bonus team that the ACC gets in, assuming that the ACC usually will get 2 teams, could come at the expense of the SEC. And maybe the SEC only gets 3 teams in. And maybe the next year, it comes at the expense of the Big Ten. And the Big Ten only earns the right to get 3 teams in. I really hope we don't get automatic qualifiers. But that's another thing, a take I got is, if you're an ACC, if you're the ACC ADs and all that, part of me thinks you shouldn't want a 3rd team to get in. Because imagine if a 3rd ACC team got in this year at the expense of an SEC school, and the SEC only got 3 teams in the big dance. That's gonna light a fire under I'm blanking on his name, SEC commissioner. That's bad ball. That's gonna light a fire under his ass to be like, no, we need automatic qualifiers ASAP. And so if you're Clemson, you almost want them to lock in a long-term, or if you're the ACC, you almost want them to lock in a long-term playoff format for the next decade, and then get your 3rd team in. So then the Big Ten and the SEC can't change the rules. But, yeah. LSU, it'll be interesting, though, because, man, it feels like this year could be the year where a 9-win team gets into the playoff. That would mean that you get 3 losses and you still get in the big dance. Like, when it's all said and done, how big of a deal is this win? How big of a deal is it? It's a big deal in the sense of potentially, getting a bye the first round. That's a big deal. But look at their schedule, man. Coming up. LSU's got number 15 Florida in 2 weeks, September 13th. Number 10 Miami, the week after that. Then a bye, then versus Texas, then 19th overall Texas A&M. Like, just an absolute gauntlet. the SEC is going to be a bloodbath. I don't think anyone goes through that schedule undefeated. My point, though, is when it's all said and done, how big is this one game? Could be big if Clemson finds themselves right on the fringe. But in the new era of college football, it's big from a fan perspective. But if we're being honest, and obviously you got to win them, right? Like if the 10-2 team versus the 9-3 team, that could be the difference between getting a bye. So I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter to the level that it would have 7 years ago. The stakes of tomorrow night's game for Bill Belichick. Fascinated to see how that plays out. My first ESPN hit. Appreciate anyone and all the well wishes over there on YouTube and TikTok about the new gig. Called my first game for ESPN yesterday. But it'll be fascinating. I'll be hanging out in the ACC country. I'm calling UNC's game week 3. So I'll be chatting with Bill Belichick here in 13 days. But tomorrow's game sets the tone for this entire season. And there's a lot of uncertainty, which is unique because usually when you hire a high-profile head coach, you kind of know what they're bringing to the park. When USC hires Lincoln Riley, you kind of know what he's bringing to the park. Brian Kelly, LSU, you know, hey, he might say some weird one-liners, but his teams are going to be competitive. With Bill Belichick, I have no idea if his team's going to be this gritty Pats level, those types of teams, if they're going to be receptive to his message. Is Bill going to be much more animated on the sideline? Is it going to be stoic? It's not the NFL. He's going to have to rally guys up. I'm very intrigued to see how that works. But UNC did something that I haven't heard anyone else talk about, and I've never seen it in my football career, in that they retained a coach and then promoted that dude to their play caller. Freddie Kitchens, who's well-known in the football world, he was Baker's OC, most notably for the Cleveland Browns. He was on staff with Mac Brown last year as tight end coach, run game coordinator, I think. Bill Belichick retains him and then promotes him to play calling duties. That is unheard of. That's unheard of for a few different reasons. One, usually that guy, if you were that qualified to be the play caller, why weren't you just play caller with the first staff? It's also unique because a lot of head coaches, they want to start fresh with the program. Sometimes when you carry over coaches, even if that coach is great, his message might fall on deaf ears because it's like, yeah, that guy was here with the last staff. So the fact that Bill Belichick did that, no one's talking about that. I've never seen that before. You retain a coach and then promote him to your play caller. But I'm fascinated to see what that looks like for UNC, Bill Belichick, Freddie Kitchens in year 1. I also don't know what this offense is going to look like. Gio Lopez, their starting quarterback, he's a dude that rushed for about 500 yards last year. I believe he was 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That's a good mark. That dude can protect the football. That dude can run. But are they going to have it be a quarterback run type of offense? Or is it going to be, no, have him operate from the pocket and his legs will just be an added bonus? I don't know. What I do know is North Carolina must not have liked their quarterback position in general coming out of spring ball or where it stood, because Gio Lopez got there in spring. Most guys, this is what I did when I transferred from USC to Pitt, you try to get in there before spring ball so you can get acclimated the whole time. UNC went through a whole spring ball installing their scheme with the dude that's not even going to be their signal caller. That's significant. If it is a running quarterback first type of offense, what intrigues me is you have Kitchens was with Baker Mayfield, who's from a college, he's got dual threat capabilities, at least from like a college quarterback type of level, maybe not NFL level. But so you have the Baker Mayfield with Kitchens. Cam Newton was with Bill Belichick at the end of his career. Again, I know it wasn't Cam Newton, Auburn Cam Newton, but those are two different styles of what it looks like to have a mobile quarterback. Where on that spectrum does Gio Lopez fall? That'll be interesting to me. And I got asked the question earlier this week of, what is year 1? What's the legacy? Or no, the question was, can UNC back up the hype? Or is the hype too much? And to me, there's hype, there's storylines, but nobody is expecting UNC to contend for an ACC title. So in some way, there's like not hype. So I do think North Carolina can back it up because it's almost just like talking points. No one's like actually saying, hey, they can go win an ACC title. The comparison that comes to my mind is what's the last school to be picked to finish 8th in their conference that we've talked about this much. It was Bill Belichick this year. It was Deion Sanders a few years ago. The big difference is Deion and Shador were telling everyone that they're coming in to win and win championships right away. And we're like, yo, this Colorado team, they were booty the year before. Maybe slow your roll. I respect it. They were trying to change the culture. That's not been Bill Belichick's temperament at all. I'm not saying he's saying they're going to lose, but I don't think year one there's this immense amount of pressure on Bill Belichick. To me, I look to that 8-win mark. That's a mark that Mac Brown reached 3 different times. Big difference. Mac Brown had 2 NFL starting quarterbacks. So that's why UNC fans were like, yeah, you might have been underperforming there. Bill Belichick, he doesn't have that. And I think he's got some leash this first year. But I do think it'll come to a head in year 2 if they haven't taken a step this year. Next year is where they really got to make it happen. But I think big picture, it's that 8-win mark. Vegas has them at 6.5, 7.5. That 8-win mark. But big picture, you got to be walking away from this season, if you're Bill Belichick and UNC, feeling like the program's on an upward trajectory, not on a middling trajectory, which that's the trap that Mac Brown fell into. It was like, all right, North Carolina's not bad, but we're not getting better. We're certainly not in that first tier of Clemson and Miami, and I would still put Florida State in that first tier of how the ACC is perceived in totality, the past 5 years. Obviously, last year was tough for FSU. But there is no reason North Carolina can't own the top of that second tier. It should be. There's no reason with the resources, with the access, there's no reason it can't be there's no reason it can't be Clemson, Miami, Florida State, and then North Carolina right there on their own. Virginia Tech fans might have something to say about that. Georgia Tech fans might have something to say about that. But man, there's no reason it can't be that way. And it's not going to be easy because talk about Pitt, talk about NC State, talk about SMU, talk about the excitement with Syracuse. I saw Virginia in person yesterday. That's a way better Virginia team than last year. There's a lot of teams that view, Max, get out of here with that take. We belong in the second tier. But North Carolina, after this year 1 with Bill Belichick, they got to be upward trajectory. Big game tomorrow versus TCU. That quarterback, Josh Hoover, TCU was a weird team last year. I had them in person week 3, the Iron Skillet, and Josh Hoover can play football. Josh Hoover is the dude that beat out Chandler Morris, who's now supposed to be Virginia's savior and played really well yesterday and played really well at North Texas last year. TCU had 2 NFL receivers out there, yet they couldn't really win. They're not that far removed from their CFP run as well. If they don't win and they don't get off to a hot start, Sonny Dykes his seat's going to be heating up. So something's got to give. It's got to start fast for Bill Belichick, and it's also right the ship for Sonny Dykes. And that game, UNC's got the 6th easiest schedule in college football. TCU is one of their harder games. If they beat TCU, they got, I believe it's 3 cupcakes after that. Circle it on your calendars. First weekend of October. Potentially could be an undefeated Bill Belichick squad. I don't know if it's at Death Valley, but they're playing Clemson. That could be a good one. Circle it on your calendar. I believe it's October 6th.